Herbert's 100 harem. Interesting, Herbert notes as he slices the last of meat away from the bone of one of the Mar-Yatha. It's just about the perfect size for an improvised sword. Granted, it's currently bloody and gunky, but a firm grip and a touch of axiom control has it suddenly sharp enough to be a legitimate threat to someone in power armor. Another interesting thing to note is that there's a huge amount of fat padding around the joints and internal organs, natural crash cushions for the impact. Axiom also runs down the fat fairly easily and causes them to have absorbing effects, but only in a single direction. It's something he not only takes pictures of in every filter his visor has, but something he notes on a voice recorder and writes down. Yes, there are methods to do this with technology, but nature normally has a lot of answers already figured out, and this is some streamlined crash padding. It's especially concentrated around the head and eyes, and he takes more pictures, recordings, and notes. If they can make helmets that are designed to trivialize drops from terminal velocity, then it's a huge win. This trip has already paid for itself in intel, and they're only on their first stop. He wonders what interesting trick the lava snakes will have. "You're looking happy," Balvana notes as she pulls out a rack of ribs, just seeing the fun improvised weaponry available. No natural claws for me, so my reflex is to pick something up and either throw it or start thrashing an enemy with it. And this is a good toy. His explanation is punctuated by him swinging the Mar-Yatha leg bone and running axiom through it in a pattern he'd been made to practice. A blade of wind erupts from the weapon and gouges a small trench into the ground and kicks up a large amount of dirt and debris away from him. Not only an attack, but a possible smokescreen or visual block if he needs to vanish. "I still prefer a tail," Balvana notes, and Herbert shrugs. "Well, I'm a long way off from splitting my pants that way, so I'll have to make do with whatever I can get my hands on," Herbert remarks as he puts the bone back with the others. A clean off of the blade, and it should be useful in making an amazing broth. Things keep going, and it doesn't take too much longer for the butchering to finish up. Herbert makes a point of working as efficiently as he can, and all but peels 2 of the Mar-Yatha out of their hides, and quickly finding all the places to outright dissect one. If he runs into one of these beasts again, he'll be able to pull it apart now, alive or dead. The Mar-Yatha just aren't a threat to him anymore. He notes Isma watching him even more as he butchers. She's smiling quite a bit. Another test. One he apparently passed at any rate, which he supposes is a good sign. There is something to be said about being underestimated after all, and having the high regard of a prominent and powerful hunt mistress is something that will raise his profile up a fair ways. While there's something to be said for having a reputation as a scary bastard, that's just not Herbert's role. Thankfully, he was able to maintain a good amount of baby fat on his face after yesterday's shenanigans. So even if Agent Herbert Jameson gains a reputation, Private Stream should be in the clear. So we've all had a chance to have some fun. How many more excursions will there be before heading to the next planet? Or do we stick around until the thought of eating another Mar-Yatha makes us ready to riot? Herbert jokes and asks at the same time. "You're asking me?" Isma asks with a coy smile. "You're the hunt mistress. Are we ready to move on?" Herbert asks, and she considers. "You've had your day in the spotlight. The more eager girls have had their fun. So tomorrow, we dedicate to the Shire and more uncertain gems in your collection. You never know when someone will find their ferocity and will to kill," Isma says, and Herbert nods. It's a fair point. The girls want to push themselves? That's fine. Great even. Better to see if one of them is the type to crack or break now when things are relatively controlled and they can still get them to help. There's no worse time than an emergency to learn that someone's got a spine with the tensile strength of a twig. He doubts any of his girls are like that. The complications at the beginning of the relationship were pretty much as stressful as things could get short of an actual combat situation, and they had all bounced back. Sure, social stress and combat stress are different, But stress is still stress, and they can handle at least some. Hell, some of the girls outright slept through the pirate attack. They were so at ease in a dangerous situation, which could be just as much a problem as freaking out, but thankfully was easier to correct by getting them to pay attention. After all, you could bribe a slacker, but someone freaking out needed markedly different kinds of attention to snap out of it. He lets out a little hum as he realizes he'd been on autopilot as he helped stack up the meat and bones of the hunt. He had even had a few conversations with the girls that had amounted to nothing. That wasn't good. He needed to pay more attention and not get lost in thought. He hadn't meditated before sleeping last night, and that was causing his mind to go a little scatterbrained, a side effect of extreme exhaustion. He glances up the canopy and sees that they're being watched, but the Marjatha there is already starting to move on. Why would it? Yzma fades into sight next to where the Marjatha was. She just intimidated a wild animal into buggering off. She sees him seeing her and gives him a little wave. Then, in a blur of movement and in an act that is far too graceful for the distances involved and the sheer size of the woman, she dives down and lands next to him near silently. "Back with us?" she asks. "I was somewhat lost in thought, but yes, I'm back. Sorry." He apologizes. "Your first instinct was to check the danger zone that makes up all the lost points easily," she assures him. "What was so fascinating that you were lost in thought?" "I was wondering who might take up our offer of an additional hunting day. After all, we've all proven that this forest can be easily taken care of. Will our more passive or shyer girls take a whack at hunting? Or have we exhausted this world for now? The world is far from exhausted. But as for who else will come down, who can say? People can surprise even themselves at times. That's one of the most important things about hunting. You have to be ready to be surprised. Neither animals nor people are stupid. They can and will change and grow in front of you, and if you're not ready for it, well, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks." Herbert makes a guttural sound as if being strangled and mimes having his throat slashed. "Isn't that supposed to be a threat among your race?" Yzma asks in an amused tone. "Depends on the context. In this case, it's my saying what would happen without actually saying what would happen." Herbert replies as he considers. "So, since we're going to be moving on from Maribor and to Skaithak soonish, do you have any insights to share?" "Well, the colony on World is actually Sonir-based. I have a great deal of family there, in fact." "You raised your Sonir children to be hunters, didn't you?" Herbert asks with a smile. "Maybe." She answers, and he just gives her an odd look. "Something wrong?" It's both surprising and not surprising in the slightest that you would found an entire city for your Sonir descendants. "You don't do things by halves, do you?" Herbert asks, and she smiles. "We all make amends for our mistakes in our own ways, although, from what they've been telling me, there may be a surprise for you there as well," she says, and Herbert gives her an odd look. "As far as I know, there are no Undaunted posted on Skaithak, and the colony is likely developed enough to get information out of the hack. So they've taken some human aesthetics onto themselves, so you expect me to be shocked to walk into Victorian London as done by giant bats or something else like that." Herbert muses out loud. "Oh, very good, but not quite. I won't spoil the surprise, but you have ballparked it. Did I use that term right? Ballparked? Generally close to the correct answer, but not the correct answer itself?" "You did," Herbert says. Was that a hint? Are they sport-obsessed?" Herbert asks. Now, you don't expect me to spoil the surprise now, do you?" she asks, and he huffs a little. "You do know I can literally just research the answer, right?" Herbert asks, and she gives him a searching look. "Consider this another test. There is no right or wrong answer, though," she tells him, and his glare is flat and thoroughly unimpressed. "Don't get huffy. I just said there's no way to fail it." He maintains the look for a short while before turning away with a slight roll of his eyes. Some vacation, it's just like being with Sir Philip. Every word is a test, every response is an answer that leads to an enormous, unending evaluation. It was more tolerant from the old man. He was paid to put up with that. But come on, he should be able to relax on vacation. Except, it's not a vacation. This is a test of Yzma the Grand Hunt Mistress, a test of her as much as a test of him. But she's acting so much like Sir Philip, and even a touch of Madame Stepanova in there. Would he be like that one day? His every gaze judging and evaluating as it strips away all secrets and lays the people around him more naked than any lack of clothing could ever achieve. It was what they were training him for, wasn't it? He lets out a sigh, and Yzma suddenly has him leaning against her. Growing greater isn't easy. Shedding old weakness leaves one feeling strangely lesser at times, she says, and he freezes. How does she know what he's thinking? I've raised more children than you've got soldiers on that ship of yours. I know what goes through the minds of the young. I'm still not used to the fact that I, an assassin, spy, soldier, and blooded killer, am still considered barely more than a baby in galactic terms. Herbert grumps. Ah, kids these days. So eager to grow up. Oh, screw you. I'm your grandmother-in-law, not your wife, so no. She chides him and he punches her in the gut. She shakes it off with a laugh. Come on, Tiny, we're done for today. Your wives have got plenty to boast about. The butchering is done and the hunting ground has its tribute. Let's go. There is a slight complication before they can leave. The shuttle has its shields up and is fending off a series of Mar-Yatha trying to dig into the metal. They've mistaken the thing for a gigantic Mar-Stories and want to eat. They watch the beasts thrash around for a few moments as Yzma giggles at the sight. All right, does anyone not want more meat? Herbert deadpans after a little bit and there's some laughter. I'll take care of these one's children. You've done enough, Yzma says before anyone else can answer, and then vanishes. He doubts any of his girls are like that. The complications at the beginning of the relationship were pretty much as stressful as things could get short of an actual combat situation, and they had all bounced back. Sure, social stress and combat stress are different, but stress is still stress, and they can handle at least some. Hell, some of the girls outright slept through the pirate attack. They were so at ease in a dangerous situation, which could be just as much a problem as freaking out, but thankfully was easier to correct by getting them to pay attention. After all, you could bribe a slacker, but someone freaking out needed markedly different kinds of attention to snap out of it. He lets out a little hum as he realizes he'd been on autopilot as he helped stack up the meat and bones of the hunt. He had even had a few conversations with the girls that had amounted to nothing. That wasn't good. He needed to pay more attention and not get lost in thought. He hadn't meditated before sleeping last night, and that was causing his mind to go a little scatterbrained, a side effect of extreme exhaustion. He glances up the canopy and sees that they're being watched, but the Mar-Yatha there is already starting to move on. Why would it? Yzma fades into sight next to where the Mar-Yatha was. She just intimidated a wild animal into buggering off. She sees him seeing her and gives him a little wave. Then, in a blur of movement and in an act that is far too graceful for the distances involved and the sheer size of the woman, she dives down and lands next to him near silently. "Back with us?" she asks. "I was somewhat lost in thought, but yes, I'm back. Sorry." He apologizes. "Your first instinct was to check the danger zone that makes up all the lost points easily," she assures him. "What was so fascinating that you were lost in thought?" "I was wondering who might take up our offer of an additional hunting day. After all, we've all proven that this forest can be easily taken care of. Will our more passive or shyer girls take a whack at hunting? Or have we exhausted this world for now?"